everybody. Welcome to my Mooncast today. You can hear me, right? According to all the statistics in front of my face right now, you can hear me and see me well. Hi, everybody. Oh my god, suddenly I have stuffy nose. It's kind of weird. Uh, I will give you a quick update about the storm. I couldn't have the Mooncast last week because the storm we lost electricity and internet for a day. So and it was right on the Mooncast, so I couldn't do it. But anyway, things are fine. And if you watch my latest video, I had a detailed report about what's been going on and how our balcony was fixed thanks to the government. I mean, yeah, it is like that in Vietnam. It's not a big deal, even though it's a category 4 storm in Vietnam. But long story short, we got taken care of by the government, the local government. So we're fine. Everything is fine. We lost internet for about 24 hours. Oh, actually not 24, like 18 hours. Yeah. And then the internet for the next 3 days because, all the cable got fucked up and the technician had to go over the city to fix it, so it took like 3 days. But anyway, things are fine. And welcome to my Mooncast today. The topic today we will talk about, like the oppression, of chance comrades under capitalism and under imperialism. And I also share my experience, my knowledge about our LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam, since I am also a member. I am the letter B. I am a bisexual, and my community in Vietnam also struggle a lot in dealing with situation. And I will talk more about that and give you some insight. And our guest today will be Comrade Clevername, that she will join us very shortly. But long story short, to prepare for the stream today, and I'm very excited for that. Let's answer this question. I just saw this from a person named T Tech. Communism has been somewhat conservative on LGBTQ rights in general. This is a very, very misunderstanding statement that usually coming from Westerners. Usually like that. Not yeah. I could be wrong. Like maybe you're not from the West, but this is one of the most common, statement from the West about global South country, especially communist, evil, authoritarian regime like Vietnam. So this is exactly what the capitalist hegemony in the West want you to believe. It is communism is conservative to LGBTQ rights. Meanwhile, literally Cuba, they just passed the most progressive, family code, I guess, in the freaking world. I haven't seen any family code that is more progressive than Cuba. And I'm sorry, Cuba is communist as fuck. They are so communist that the USA has been sanctioning them for over 6 decades, 60 plus year already. So, I mean, yeah, so what do you say about that? What do you say about a so communist country that they were under the sanctions from the capitalist hegemony like the USA for like over 6 decades, and they just passed the most progressive family code ever? Means that communism and being conservative about LGBTQ plus right has nothing to do with each other. And the situation in Vietnam is that, again, it's freaking complicated, and there are two main reasons why we, the LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam, struggle a lot. First is because of the freaking capitalist hegemony, the transphobia and queerphobia coming from the West that got, shoveled into our society by, Western media outlets. We got like bombarded by that propaganda a lot. The second thing is that like we have also different from you, we have to deal with the Neo-confucianism, which is I will talk a little bit about it later if you want to know more. But there are two main things that like the biggest obstacles in society of Vietnam right now. One is a Western media outlet, the queer phobia coming from that, and the second is a Neo-confucianism, and both of them has absolutely nothing to do with communism. And that is a very, I hope that if you like watching it right now and if you hear anybody like spreading this false information about communism, please educate them and say that it has nothing fucking to do with communism. And actually we communists, we're trying so freaking hard to break through the curtain, the iron curtains of the queerphobia coming from Western media outlet, Western capitalist hegemony, and also our own Neo-confucianism, which is terrible. It's freaking hard, man. Yeah, Dorian Sapiens, case in point, some of the chief opponents of Cuban family code were U.S. by Christian closely. Exactly, I was about to talking about this. So, socialist revolutions have taken place in most colonized places where native cultures have been most distorted and replaced by reactionary capitalist colonizer culture. Exactly. Very on point during Sapiens. Oh, by the way, our comrade has came. Now let's meet our awesome comrade. Right here. Okay. Okay. I hope that you can hear me, Comrade Clevername. I will add you to the stream right now.
No idea if I'm audible though.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Welcome to my stream. Our stream today. Our mooncast today. And comrade, this is our Comrade Clevername, my good comrade. And can you please introduce yourself to the audience, to my audience? In case anybody do not know about you yet.
Yes, one moment. Sorry, just replying to something.
Okay. Okay, so as I just said, about the new family code in Cuba. It is extremely awesome, and I do wish, we the LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam right now, we do wish that Vietnam will soon follow the step, of Cuba, because it's set a really good, example for us to follow, and this is exactly the same thing that we the LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam been fighting for so long. And I mean, we just hope that Vietnam will follow it soon.
All right. Hello. Okay. Hi. Hi, everyone. Hello. Sorry about that. Very unfamiliar with the program we're using to communicate. So, anyway, hi, hello. Unfortunately, I haven't spent too much time learning exactly what the decision was in Cuba. I've been dreadfully busy. I believe it was that they finally officiated legal gay marriage.
Exactly.
Which was sort
and
of,
they can like adopt children too, and then if one spouse die, the other one can take care of them, like this. Yeah.
I know that it hadn't been officiated in law for the longest time on a federal level, but it more or less was the law of the land in Cuba that gay people could be married and so forth, but the state had yet to intervene. So it's good that they have officiated it within, I believe, their constitution.
Yeah. Exactly, and it is a great step forward, because the people, 2/3 of the people agree with that, so it's like really like a strong step forward. Because even right now, the biggest problem is to educate the people, the society to accept. It's really hard, and Cuba did it. We admire them so much.
It's been a long process done by Cuban LGBT activists and the proletarian process of like the state to eventually get here, and it's good to see that they have taken another great step, and I hope that all socialist countries continue to take forward steps to the complete liberation of the proletariat in all features, including social features. And Cuba is very much leading the way in the LGBT struggle,
Yes.
but I know that China, Vietnam, and DPRK are following suit as well
Yeah.
with their own LGBTQ struggles in their own regions, and I hope them the best of luck. But
Yeah.
of course, we're on here more so to talk about LGBT issues, especially trans and gender issues, because it's obviously, probably from my voice, pretty self-evident that trans issues are somewhat important from being in North America and being trans myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you
Um,
please like introduce a little bit more about yourself?
yes, hello. My name is Comrade Clevername. I am a communist intellectual, for lack of better words. I have been active in both online and IRL communist activism for the better
Mm.
part of a decade and a half at this point, I think. I've been
Wow.
around a very long time and have been working for the worker struggle as well as the queer struggle inside of the United States and Canada for a while. I mostly do Twitch streams these days,
Mm.
and you can catch that every Tuesday and Thursday, talking about news, especially in the philosophical and political education level, talking about what things mean and how that relates to the class struggle itself.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, and I
Mm,
believe this will be a great conversation and then open the eyes of a lot of comrades in the chat here too. Because
mm,
from right from the start of the stream, I already had a comment from some person said like communism is something like inherently very conservative toward like LGBTQ plus, and I just debunk that
mm,
false argument. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Western hegemony, the capitalist hegemony against our community. Can you talk a little
mm.
bit more about that?
Yeah. Um,
We
when
will
there,
have to take a sign.
uh,
It's just depressing.
mhm. It is a subject that starts a long time ago. It starts
Mm,
around the time of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution with
yeah,
the very Western notion of gender, which of course then got expropriated across the entire globe. Uh, I am not overly knowledgeable about how gender works in every single particular context, but there are generally, feudal and pre-feudal gender relations that were mostly extended across the world with like a very communal understanding of family and such, and many places which did not have binary understanding of gender whatsoever.
yeah,
Much is made in the United States about the twin spirit community of a Native American gender identity, and a handful of others. I believe you made a video about Vietnamese gender concepts from the pre-colonial period.
yeah.
And it's all very fascinating. Unfortunately, I'm not overly educated about that, but I can talk about Two Spirit as an umbrella rather than an identity. My apologies. Yeah, again. But a lot of what's going on in capitalism and how transphobia really animates itself is this enforcement of Western industrial revolution era gender concepts, which
Mm,
really start in like Western Europe and Britain,
mm, mm,
uh,
mm.
with a clear gender divide in labor. Because everything, of course, in capitalism revolves back around the exploitative labor of capitalism, the ability to produce profit, and by extension, capital, and so forth. And the way that was developed during the Industrial Revolution was to clearly differentiate the kinds of labor that people can do into a strict binary force and creating those as essential biological roles for people to inhabit based off of chromosomal constructs and secondary sex characteristics, right? creating these categories based off of real things called men and women, but creating these new economic categories of men and women, with the productive labor being carried out by men going into the factories and so forth, and reproductive labor being carried out by the women, in quotation, whom maintain home and family, which was absolutely not how people saw it prior to that, and is immensely modern, only a couple hundred years old in the scale of human society. And that understanding of the family structure as well as gender is somewhat paramount in capitalist relations and the capitalist order, and was quickly exported across the entire globe during the colonial period. We see the forceful integration of peoples in South Asia, Africa, and the Americas into this family structure.
Yeah.
In order to maximize profit during the colonial extraction of super profits, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The absolute slaughter and destruction of people's ways of lives whenever they weren't, murdering people themselves.
And everything considered like being different is somehow like bad, and they must like eliminate that.
Properly explained as immoral.
Yeah, immoral. Yeah,
that
yeah.
is
True.
wrong on a spiritual level and must be expunged for the betterment of those people. Again, it's the white man's burden narrative, right? We must go over there and help them. This is actually for them. We're doing it for them.
Exactly. We like they sacrifice for us. Like what? Excuse me. And the thing is that like compared to like our, and I know there are a lot of different indigenous cultures that we have the third gender, and we have a whole even like religion based on the LGBTQ, the queer community, the trans people, to be exact, in Vietnam, in the Vietnamese situation. And because we not white, we from global south, so it means that we are uncivilized. Somehow they have to come and fix us, because otherwise they try so hard to destroy our belief. Even though like for hundreds of years we have a whole religion where we worship our mothers, and that is a way for trans people in Vietnam to express themselves in society, and they were very well respected. But then the West came, the colonizers came, and they tried to kill all of that and call that all wrong. And in Vietnam right now, we are still trying to recover that belief back from the death. Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people have to try to actively maintain as the force of cultural genocide goes forward from European colonialism and now modern neo-colonialism. As agents of Western society tries to integrate the various cultures and peoples into a Western formalization, the process of neo-Westernization and so forth. That people, actively have to struggle against to maintain some semblance of their, community's identity whatsoever.
Yeah. I think that Christianity, also has something to do with this, because, because I know that Cuba been affected like heavily by Christian kind of belief, and that is why the passage of a new family code is an extreme important step toward the future.
Yes. A lot of like hegemonic Christianity is utilized to normalize these very modernist understandings of gender and that economic relation. Sort of remembered back upon these works and this religion that that's the way it's supposed to be. Because of course the church, much like everything else, is a living organism and a living organization that changes its beliefs around the material conditions that it exists in. And the Catholic Church or the Protestant churches, or the organization of Protestant churches, as well as things like the Russian Orthodoxy, very much have integrated themselves into capitalism and work now as the justification for modern capitalism, as they had worked as the justification for the feudal epoch.
Yeah. It's stuff. So just so like in Clevername, like in situation in Vietnam right now, we have a both, like the queer phobia coming from, a Western capitalist hegemony. We also have Christianity queer phobia coming from that, and we
Mhm.
have a third thing called Neo-confucianism, which is also very anti-LGBT. Like we literally we're fighting on three different fronts
Mhm.
right now to try to educate
I
Vietnamese. But
I
it's
believe it
tough.
was the
It's
Wall
really
Street
tough for us.
Journal I was reading the other couple of weeks ago, that was fawning, absolutely fawning about the proliferation of Neo-Confucian
Mm.
teachings in China. Just like look at
Mm.
the wonderful return of Confucianism in these Chinese communities.
I'm having like goosebumps right now. I'm really a believe it. They bring back Neo-Confucianism. So, Dorian Sabian said, like, what the heck is Neo-Confucianism? So, I'll give you a very, very brief summary of what is Confucianism. So, around 2,000 years ago, I could be wrong, but around that,
Mhm.
there was a guy named Kongzi. That is his name in Chinese. I could be wrong, but like Kongzi. And he's confused. He's Confucian. Yeah, he's Confucian. And he believed, at first, originally, Confucianism mostly talk about, like very patriarchal, means that they raise the roles of man in society. The man will run the family, the man will run the society, the man will become a king and then will lead the country, blah blah blah, like that. And then the woman just stay at home and be housewife, and that's it. Okay. And then when Vietnam was conquered for 1,000 years by, the North Kings, like the Chinese king 1,000 years ago. We were occupied by them for 1,000 years, so they brought Confucianism into our society, and then like imposed that on us. And then it was like extremely opposite to our original belief. The Vietnamese society, when we were tribes, we were matriarchal, means that the women held the power of a society. And then when we were conquered by them for 1,000 years, and we like the and even until now, the tension between, Confucianism and the traditional belief of Vietnam still very strong right now. That we worship mothers, but also we have to respect the role of the fathers, of the fathers, and that. So now, but this is not the main point. Then why is that after 1,000 years, living in Vietnam, Confucianism developed into a new kind of level. We call it Neo-Confucianism. It focused less on feudalism, because like Confucianism originally focused very much on feudalism, on the kings and the mandarin. But like Neo-Confucianism focused much more on the family kind of level. Means that like the children have to respect parents, and husband have to be the bread earner of the family, blah blah. But one of the biggest thing is this: under Neo-Confucianism, one of the biggest sins that children can do for their parent is to not having children, to not getting married. That is one of the very important terrible sins of Vietnamese children. I think that's the next generation. So, and LGBTQ plus community, us, we usually being accused of not wanting to get married, of not wanting to have kids. So Neo-Confucianists in Vietnam very anti that, against that, because like all they care about is the next descendants, to maintain the bloodline. So that is the thing we are dealing with. Like even me with my mom, my dad right now, it's very hard for me to talk to my dad about that. But yeah, long story short, that is Neo-Confucianism that we are dealing with in our society, and it's tough.
Even in that, you can see a lot of the influences of Westernism in its development, because its understanding of the family is still different from like feudal Chinese family understanding, which is
Mm.
obviously hugely important in the original Confucian thought. Uh,
Yeah.
as it's more interested in maintaining the profit motive and so forth, than maintaining the proper upright morality of kings.
The divine rights of the king. Okay, whatever.
And it's certainly a reactionary movement, and it's no surprise the Washington Journal is excited to see its rumbling on on the in the shadows of Chinese society, and of course its
Yeah.
expansion into other East Asian cultures, which absolutely dreadful to see any kind of reactionary and hyper-conservative movement like that happen. But the utilization of particular religion by imperial hegemony has been certainly a thing.
Yeah, sure.
And
And sure, everything is like, the situation got worse during 100 years, and we got colonized by French colonialists. So,
who also had their own interest in enforcing the Western concept of the family
yes, yes,
upon its colonial subjects. We see that in
yes,
places like Algiers and so forth, and various African colonies, and of course we see that in
yeah,
Vietnam with its attempt to, make it more like France to the best of its abilities as a means of making the colony more profitable ultimately, because they realized that the familial structure of one man quotation marks and one woman quotation marks is, again, these concepts in that paradigm is so heavily subject to ideology. When we are talking about men and women in that paradigm, and still to many people in the West are still understanding these in some way as having a relation to an economic function, and not people who just happen to be one gender or the other.
yeah, right.
Matter.
You have to choose one or the other. That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the choice is what's really offensive to people, which eventually will get
Oh, exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, yeah, talking about the. Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant like, those.
the binary of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the binary of it. They are binary thinking. Yeah, I'm sorry. My mistake.
The of course, I very much think gender is the thing, and I think people have genders and such, obviously. But it doesn't really have that much bearing on the personage themselves, and especially
Yeah,
not on their essential labor function, which is incredibly
exactly.
ideological and capitalist originated, and it's something that the West still very much believes in, even as it pretends it does not. And one of the elements of this organization is the essentialness of it, that there are essentially people who are the productive laborer, i.e., the man with a capital M and a trademark, and the people who are women, who are the productive laborer, again, with a capital W and a trademark. These
Yeah.
ideological concepts that are ingrained upon a person by birth to slot them into one or two castes of laboring.
Exactly.
Uh,
And they just like shove it down into just, the janitor will decide
mm,
everything.
yes. And it had, for such a longest time, became so offensive that there were people who didn't very much do that. No matter how much
Yeah.
they tried, there were people who, for one reason or another, were either women though were born men, or men though were born women, or even many cases neither.
Yeah. Exactly. There
Which
are
was especially
many
offensive, and
actually.
is still offensive to many liberals
Yeah.
to this idea, to this very moment, that non-binary people exists. Especially offensive.
Exactly, right? Like like you like people who don't conform to any kind of gender identity. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just, I mean, and here's the thing too, there are people who born with both kind of genitals inside their
Mhm.
body. So what they're gonna deal with that situation?
The historical answer is deny it and just have the doctor decide which one they were supposed to have been. I actually have a couple friends who were born intersex, who
Mm,
got fixed, quote unquote, by their by the doctor at the hospital when they
my
were born.
oh gosh. Hmm. This is very
And
depressing to hear. Like, like they
it is again the problem of Western medicalization and rigid categorization, where everything must be this one thing, and that one thing is essential, immutable, and unchangeable. It is an
yeah.
absolutely undialectical thinking of this. There are these sorts of things which are based off these Platonic idealized concepts that float out in the aether somewhere, that all things must be relegated into. And for the capitalists, for the liberals, recently we had the development of some of them deciding that some trans people are okay, right? We see some liberals being very lip servicey in their understanding of trans issues, and it's mainly in so far that trans people reintegrate themselves into into the gender binary, into this economic model, so that trans women like myself have to be very womanly, and trans men must be very masculine, very manly.
Yeah,
Their
yeah, and yeah,
relations, rather than
again,
trying.
toxic femininity and then toxic masculinity. You have to conform to that too.
Mhm. You must be like this. We will permit you as these liberals think, they will permit us
God
our silly little
damn.
fantasy as long as we maintain social order long enough.
Yeah.
No.
When I had a video talking about toxic femininity and
Mhm.
toxic femininity and the patriarchy in
Yes.
the society of Vietnam. They intertwine very much. Like my mom, she's very feminine,
Mhm.
and then she forced me also into being feminine like her. Like
Mhm.
I should not learn, like pursue the studying career too high because I need to spend time to have a boyfriend, then got married and have at least 2 kids. And I should not
Mhm.
follow what I love, which is art, because to her that art will just consume too much time and make not enough money. And I need to spend most of my time just taking care of the family and the kids.
I fail to see how
And
making a painting will produce children.
hey.
Right? Like, it's dreadful. People must be allowed to develop in accordance with their abilities for
Yeah,
the betterment of all society, I think. And these gender paradigms are very much getting in the way of that.
yeah,
These ideology on top of gender is heavily problematic for people and very harmful for people. We can see that
exactly.
harm writ large on all of society.
It's painful too. It's painful because I
And
love art a lot
mm,
and was the little girl. And literally, like I drew a lot of pictures, and even made me and my friend made a whole comic book together, just on my notebook paper. And my
mm,
dad saw it. My dad just tore it apart because
mm,
my mom and my dad wanted me to just focus on studies so I can pass the exam to university. Any time spending on art is because they consider like a waste of time. So it's kind of a stain in my memory
mhm,
forever that I don't ever believe that I will get over it. It's like a forever a scar in my memory in my childhood that it was very
mm.
traumatizing because of that.
It's very funny because in Western society, art is considered somewhat feminine in a lot of cases. So I myself was discouraged from doing too much art.
I mean, society sucks. We need,
Mhm.
yeah, we need
You
to
know,
work on it a lot.
and
And see, like, it's not because of communism or anything. We born on different side of the earth, and we
mhm,
still doing the same exact thing,
mhm.
right?
People must become freer, and it's a process of becoming freer as we develop more proletarian power, and from that understanding the essential relation of these identity struggles into the proletarian
Mm,
context, because
exactly.
we understand that the class struggle is the primary current that moves through history, and all things
Mm,
are originating from the class struggle. And so
yeah,
too, the identity struggle, being queer, being non-white, so on and so forth, all these different kinds of identities are themselves
yeah,
reflections from the class struggle. They aren't separate from
exactly.
it. They aren't alien from it. They are the same thing.
They intertwine with each other. They work with
Mhm,
each other very closely, and this is why when you attack, you have to attack like all of them. You cannot
mhm.
just like attack one and then forget all the rest. You can't because they don't
I
work like
keep
that.
I keep coming back to the metaphor of light, because
Mm,
inside of light there is the full color spectrum, uh,
yeah,
and you can refract that light and see the multitudes of color within that light, but ultimately it still originates from the same source of light.
exactly. Yeah, true.
And the class struggle is the primary emanation of all historic struggles, and as such, being queer is unmistakably related into being proletarian just as much as being non-white, just as much as being global south, so on and so forth. And we can see that again coming back to the trans issue, because being trans is at the very minimum skewing the idea of this essential gender labor dichotomy. It is from the get-go questioning one of the more primeval concepts in capitalist hegemony, which is the gender ideology, this binary of genders, this essentialist gender. And how that is utilized by capitalist states and capitalist culture to maximize profit and the security of capital. And at the very minimum, queer people are disrupting that very frequently, absolutely in conflict, and capitalist societies will always turn on queer people. I mean, of course, very famously, the first books that the Nazis burned were the studies of gender performed by various Weimar scientists, right?
Yeah.
Along
Not surprised at all.
Along
the
with
fascist, queerphobic, transphobic.
Along with Marxist literature, they were also burning things from the Sexuality Institute, which is studying being gay and being trans in the Weimar Republic.
I just watched a movie last night. I forgot the name, but it's a very famous movie, and EJ can type that name of the movie in the chat. But I really love that movie. And I learned a historical fact from that movie, is that Nazi Germany, when they put gay people into the concentration camp, they create a red triangle for all gay people, right? That's the thing that I learned from that movie yesterday, and it's a really sad part of history, because
it's the pink triangle, I think.
The pink triangle.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, kind of pink triangle.
Okay,
in the concentration camp. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, pink triangle meant gay men. I'm trying to think of all the. I can't believe I've forgotten. It's escaping me right now. But pink triangles meant gay men. Lavender triangles, I think, meant gay women, or lazy women, quote unquote, i.e., women who weren't performing their familial duties.
Gosh, so disgusting. Oh, Comrade Clevername, I want to ask, what is
By the way, that's the... I'm sorry to interrupt.
Hi.
That's definitely the darkest, takeaway from Rocky Horror Picture Show I've ever heard.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh, yeah, that's the name of the movie. Yeah, I love it so much. I want to ask you this question. The biggest argument against trans people in Vietnam right now is to not having babies, to not having kids. What is the biggest argument against trans people in the West where you live?
Oh, that's certainly one of them. The inability to have children is certainly a reoccurring argument amongst all queerphobia in the West. For trans people, though, it is mostly about scaremongering. In the United States, trans people, and in particular trans women, is usually boiled down into trans women, are frightful monsters coming in to harm children and women, right? It is this massive campaign.
Sounds like the Halloween thing.
Yeah. It is this massive campaign of terror that is often, very, 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 very often utilized to justify violence being committed against trans people. Which to this day, trans people, especially non-white trans women, are incredibly likely to suffer from violence via both the agents of the state and civilian actors. In many U.S. states, it's still very lawful to murder a trans woman and cite the trans panic defense, i.e. that you had became frightened from the revelation that they were in fact trans, and that had thrown you into a violent lunge to end them immediately.
Yeah.
Right. That is a defense in many U.S. states, and had been one for a while.
Sucks a lot. I mean, talking about our struggles, totally different side of the earth, but still sharing the same struggle is, I mean, it's sad, it's depressing, but again, just look at what just happened in Cuba. At least it gives me some hope
Mhm.
for the future, and the hope will not come from the imperial core. The hope come from actually like kind
It will
of more
come from
like
the
socialist
people.
countries.
It will come from the might of the people.
Yeah.
Will not come from capitalist societies, because right now we have various like Western societies, various capitalist societies alternating whether or not they shall permit our existence and give us some amount of concession, or march straight forward into our genocide, like say in the United States, with things like the especially in things like the Texas decisions to categorize trans healthcare as a form of child abuse.
Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then another argument coming from the trans folks, like they require the age to do that. Like what? And then they
Right.
literally like, I saw an incident, like a
Mm.
trans kid and their parent got doxxed and received death threat from literally like trans folk from the USA. It's what can we do about that? What do we do about that? I mean,
Mm. The answer is to build power in Western societies for proletarians, and in particular for queer proletarians. And the answer is going to be like basically the same for all of the all of the various myriad identity struggles, which is to
yeah,
build proletarian power specifically in a way that maintains power for marginalized people as well, because that has been a
yeah,
huge problem in Western societies. Whenever the accumulation of power for only certain kinds of proletarians, we have, like, say, in the 1930s, the CPUSA, like, absolutely harming non-white workers by only trying to get the interests of white workers in the United States and so forth, and various other. There is not a organization in the West, in the West, in America, in Europe, and anywhere, who cannot who can like not claim to have had a track record of betraying marginalized identities within the proletarian movement in order to secure some sort of right for a more privileged group of proletarians.
yeah,
And it is we must build a like actually intersectional proletarian movement to secure the welfare and well-being of all different kinds of working people in
yeah,
whichever country that they happen to be in. And that is the primary
exactly.
goal of every single, I think everything should be the primary goal for every single socialist and every single
True.
uh, every single leftist, every single communist inside of a Western society, is to deal with your society, right? And there's a lot of Western people who seem to think that they can go out and judge third world nations or second world nations for their homophobia, for their queerphobia, for their racism, and so on and so forth, when they live in a country that still has massive murders of trans people, that still, like, say, in the United States, which kills black people minutely, right? That
Yeah.
has a massive, which has a massive
At least
slave.
nothing doesn't happen in Vietnam, like just kill
Mm,
people out of, our identity like that. It just
mm,
doesn't happen
yeah.
here.
Like, America in particular is uniquely bad, so it's especially rich for white Western leftists in the United States to go on and talk about anywhere else when a large portion of the country is still in slavery.
Yeah, exactly. The prison system is literally the slavery system still existing in the USA right now.
quite literally as the amendment that outlawed slavery had outlawed slavery, with the exception
Yes,
for prisoners.
exactly. To like accept, to punish that crime or something. And who define crimes? Yeah, the bourgeoisie. Cool,
And for some
amazing.
reason,
Yeah.
all those crimes got the really, really bad crimes just happened to be the ones that non-white people commit, which is very strange how that worked out.
Yeah.
Much is made about like the drug war and how cocaine has a much lighter sentence than heroin.
And even gun control. Gun
Mhm.
control was released just so they can control, the Black Panthers.
Mhm.
Not because they care about, the gun owners or anything. It's just because of the Black Panther.
Mhm. Great conservative hero Ronald Reagan is the reason why California currently has such strict gun regulations in order to disarm the Black community.
Hey, just a side question, Comrade Clevername. Do you know that how much it will cost you if you visit the grave of Ronald Reagan?
Visiting the grave of Ronald Reagan? I don't know how much it would cost. I didn't know it cost something.
Yes, just guess.
I actually did not know that it costs money to visit the grave of Ronald Reagan.
It cost you $30.
I did
$30.
not. I didn't know you needed a ticket to see Ronald Reagan's moldering corpse.
It's $30, by the way. It's ridiculous.
Everything has to cost money. $30 is steep for a public restroom. That's right.
And it's around $50, $49 if you want to visit the Queen Elizabeth II's grave in the UK. So just a side note.
I cannot imagine spending a single cent to visit Queen Elizabeth's tomb.
That's capitalism. You're gonna have to milk the cows even after death.
Mm-hmm. But where was I though? Sorry, I'm horribly.
Talking. Yeah.
Tonight.
I'm sorry, my ADHD is very strong today. We're talking about the country in the West. You like commit like crimes against non-white community and also LGBTQ plus community, and then you criticize other countries for being.
Oh yeah, no. There is the crimes committed by civilian actors whom. There's the epidemic of hate crimes, whether it's against non-white people or queer people. Obviously, we're talking about trans people, and there's an extreme proliferation of hate crimes against trans people across the United States. It is extremely unsafe to be a trans person in the United States of America, especially as the contradiction of the gender struggle heats up in the United States. I know of people who have been horribly harassed and accosted, and how very unsafe they make trans events whenever people try to organize trans events. There have been bombings against clinics that have done trans healthcare. There have been.
My gosh.
Obviously, as I said before, hate crimes against individuals, and there have been acts of mass violence and terror against providers of trans healthcare or suspected providers of trans healthcare. I believe in a case.
Yeah. And they harass the parents too.
Mm-hmm.
The parents and then the family members. Oh, wait a minute. I have a super chat about 30 minutes ago and coming from Matthias. Hi, Luna, loving your videos and seeing an inside view from a socialist experience in Vietnam. I love from Brazil. Hey, hello. I would love to create Portuguese Brazil subtitles for your videos. That is amazing, Matthias. Please email me at lunaoi.channel@gmail.com. Please, lunaoi.channel@gmail.com, and you put on the the title of the stream, the title of the video of the email is subtitle or something like that with the word subtitle on it, so I can know how to search it. But I would really much appreciate that and really help a lot. my channel in the future, and to spread information to our comrades all over the world. Thank you so much. Please email me to lunaoi.channel@gmail.com. Another super chat from Sam Wise talking about the Kung Fu Zi. The Kung Fu Zi, I think, is the name of the Confucian guy who created Confucianism.
Is
Yeah,
the
Confucius.
name of I do believe that is how you said it was the correct way of saying his name.
Yeah.
It's very.
I mean, it's kind of really weird. You can translate his name into Confucian because his real Chinese name is a Kung Fu Zi.
Confucius.
Yeah.
It is common. It's a very odd thing. So Europe obviously had a common language throughout the Middle Ages, all the way up into I want to say we stopped really using Latin as the common language during the Industrial Revolution. And a means by which of communicating was Latinizing everyone's name as well, to make it more Roman sounding. And
yeah, exactly. True. You're right.
So a lot of people throughout history have names that end with "us" or "us" or stuff like that. So Copernicus and trying to think of other examples. I can't remember, but
Lunus. My name is Lunus.
It was one of the traditions of trying to make everything in part of this lingua franca, being Latin, was Latinizing names as well, because obviously Roman names ended with things like "us." And this would be done to people who also weren't part of Europe. So they would also be referred to in this Latinized way. Oh yeah, Columbus, that wasn't his name.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
No, his name was, actually, let me look up his name.
I didn't know that Columbus was actually not that asshole's name. I hate Columbus, by the way. I hate him.
Yes, his name was Colombo. Cristoforo Colombo.
Colombo. That's changing to Columbus. I see it.
So his first name was Latinized as well to Christopher from the Italian Cristoforo, and his last name was Latinized from the Italian Colombo to Columbus. And same with Confucius, who we decided his name should be Confucius.
It is very confusing.
But everyone had to have their Roma sona, basically.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah.
Looking over at the YouTube chat, and everyone is very heatedly talking about the Russian situation.
Yeah. That is, it's that topic just dominates the chat, all the chat. I mean, like, hey.
I know. Russia is very, the imperialist war is very important, and warmongering and such is very important, but
I mean, and the NATO and the USA.
I don't know how many people in this chat are Eastern European.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: maybe Vietnamese people would just not want any war, especially after this. We could be wrong, but we hope to be wrong. But there could be a chance of a nuclear war. Just seeing the way the NATO and the US and the Russia sign, just like consider this new election thing, and we just very much opposed to that. But we don't pick a side because I'm sorry, they all suck a lot. Like they all suck, and we don't pick a side, and that is, the situation where we Vietnamese, we are very kind of dialectical materialist kind of society, generally speaking. We see we consider a issue from all aspects, and we see that. I mean, that's the thing. I want to say it's very complicated. Yeah.
But I always take the position of revolutionary defeatism when it comes to imperialist wars. But back onto topic. ADHD
Exactly.
is very
Back
dreadful
onto the
today.
important topic.
ADHD is very dreadful today. Basically, did not sleep last night, so I am just. I imagine I am everything I'm saying is making perfect sense to me, but I do thoroughly worry. I've just jumped from one completely unconnected topic to the next one.
We have the same exact problem. I'm sorry, but ADHD is a real threat to our, ability to focus and to, really. We're talking about, all the hate crimes that
Mhm.
trans people, trans community
You know,
dealing with in the West.
there are the hate crimes committed by civilian actors, right? Which I talked about a little. But there's, of course, the hate crimes committed by the state itself. Is not just Texas that is trying to ban being trans, right? I believe Kansas has done as well, and I know Georgia has tried to articulate similar laws as well. And ADHD really is a struggle. I have to agree with you, Blue.
True.
It is a battle.
We do have to ADHD, solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
ADHD comrades.
I'm thoroughly unmedicated recently, and I'm trying to read through Origins of Private Property, Family, and the State before stream was. Reading is good, but it's not always easy.
It's not. I'm trying so hard to read, the family code of Cuba too, And yeah, talking about it, you know what, like, it is a thing that in Vietnam that I said, like, before you enter the stream today, that we Vietnamese, we just really wish, especially we in the LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam, we really hope that Vietnam will look at Cuba and follow that step, because it's so important. Because the biggest obstacles that we are dealing with right now is the society, the what you call it, like the acceptance of the society.
Mm,
Funny enough, it's not the government itself. It's not. Actually, the the Ministry of Health in Vietnam since 2013 been
mm,
pushing very hard on, like giving health care for trans people, putting, the Medicare for trans people under our
mm.
national insurance. And we're so, like, trying
I
to
don't
have a
remember pushing
better,
therapy,
like,
and
doctors in Vietnam. Yeah, medicine in Vietnam, pharmacy in Vietnam. But, like, and here's the thing too, I will show you this. I think this is a very important fact that I want our comrade to know, that even the Vietnamese government itself is trying so hard to like to really, yeah. Let
mm,
me see this Chrome tab. Like, the government is trying so hard to educate our own people, right? It
mm,
just happened about a few months ago, where in Vietnam there was some doctors, like homophobic, transphobic doctors and clinics in Vietnam, that they advertise that they can cure trans people, something like that. And this is it became a kind of big issue in Vietnam in the last few months. And the government, out the official page of the government with millions of followers, it just made an official statement saying that, this is my translation of it, because this is the official statement from that
mm.
Vietnamese government. It says LGBTQ plus is not disease. The Ministry of Health has received information that there are some clinics and doctors that can cure LGBTQ disease. In fact, WTO and like WTO and an American Psychic Association of LGBTQ plus is not a disease, therefore it cannot be cured. But yeah, long story short, we just, like, show fight about the trans community in Vietnam and try to protect them. And I do think that this is a small but important step of the Vietnamese government
Mm,
in educating our society, slowly but steadily into, like, to get, like, more acceptance to our trans community. And I think that, as I said, so I see even the government is trying really hard to educate people, but the biggest problem right now is the society itself. With the shit coming from capitalist hegemony, the queer phobia coming from Christianity, and also the people coming from Confucianism, it's kind of a mess. So like the society right now, especially old people, we call like Vietnamese boomers, like my parents' age, they very much uneducated about our community, and since they uneducated about that, they don't know about us much. So like they against us. So it is a very big issue in Vietnam right now, and I do think that I do hope that the attempt from the government ourselves, the attempt from our own LGBTQ plus community, and also the example set by Cuba will really help things move forward in Vietnam.
Mhm. I certainly do hope so at the very minimum.
Yeah,
And I do have faith in socialist governments to and the people in those countries to further move the queer liberation struggle. And I even do genuinely have faith in the people in the first world to be able to help themselves and to liberate themselves from their capitalist states. Because really, that is the main threat to us right now, is our capitalist states. Even in places like Vietnam and various other socialist countries, with imperialist powers trying to subvert and
what you call it, like infiltrate or interfere.
interfere, that's the word I'm looking for. Interfere with its society, at one moment trying to make it more queerphobic, for instance, like the Neo-Confucian instance, which certainly I imagine some people in certain Western capitalist organizations, if not even the states themselves, are certainly helping prop up speakers for that.
Yeah,
As well as attempting to infiltrate queer liberation movements, even to make them less effective at fighting against queerphobia. Like,
yeah,
that was a thing that happened in Poland, right, my place,
yeah. Wow.
and it happens here in the United States as well. A lot of the time, there is still very much infiltration via capitalist orders or liberal orders that actively makes these organizations less effective in dealing with
Exactly.
homophobia. And for places like Vietnam, China, etc., they're infiltrating to destabilize the region rather than to make
Yeah,
queer people less capable of arguing for themselves. But here in the United States, they're definitely doing to destabilize the movement itself with reformists and various reactionaries. I mean, you
yeah.
see.
It is a very complicated issue, and we need to look at it in a very clear mind and lots of nuance and knowledge information about it before you have any conclusion. But yeah, I totally agree with you.
It is a very complex situation because there are a lot of people and some people who are wanting very good things but are going about it in a very wrong-headed way. And there are people who want very bad things and are going about it in a very effective way. And the line blurs and is somewhat irrelevant, actually, even if they are directly connected to state forces or whatever, because at the end of the day, they are acting as if though they are. They are doing what they're doing at the end of the day is helping capitalism and hurting our people and our community.
Exactly. They're using our political identity, our IPA to fight against us. For example, like Pete Buttigieg,
Yeah.
he's
Buttigieg is one
yeah,
more blatant examples of recuperament, right? Where obviously this guy is connected to the state. He's a little CIA guy,
yeah,
and he ran for president. And he
exactly,
is there to give queer people in the United States a method of integration into capitalism that doesn't involve acquiring their own power, that doesn't involve
exactly,
power, that doesn't involve advocating for ourselves and our cultures and such. Instead, it's
exactly.
like, no. You individually could be very welcome into our society. You could even be the president, as long as you do it in a capitalistic way, as long as you do it in
Yeah,
a liberal way, which of course is obviously absurd and obviously repugnant.
yeah. Obviously, if you look at the U.S. right now, like they're using the exact same tactic.
Mm.
They're using women like to strengthen the status quo, like Hillary
the current
Clinton
fascist
and Kamala Harris.
the
Yeah,
current fascist leader of Italy is a woman, and she
exactly.
agrees
So
with
many
Benito
people forgot about
Mussolini.
that Melanie. Yeah, literally the daughter of Mussolini, and literally she raised her father.
Mm,
And sadly, like, Mussolini just did everything for Italy. But she's woman, so according to those
Well, those are
leaks,
two different people. Benito Mussolini's granddaughter, who is also a fascist politician, but she's not
gosh,
currently the president of Italy. That's a
I
different
mistake between
woman.
them two. Yeah, oh my god,
There
it's
are
even
a
worse.
couple of women
It's worse.
fascists in Italy.
It's worse. I'm sorry, it's
Mm,
even worse. But yeah, my point still stands. The point that they use our identity politics
mm,
so they can maintain the status quo. Like Pete Buttigieg just bring you more to neoliberalism, and Kamala Harris literally
mhm.
a cop, an ex-cop, and also like Hillary Clinton literally like
Was a
war
woman
crime.
who joked and laughed about imprisoning homeless
Yeah,
black men.
exactly. Like this is like a war criminal, like committed war crimes. Like I mean, it's and Andy Ngo,
Mhm,
a very very dangerous Vietnamese American fascist.
mhm.
Literally, he's so dangerous to the queer community in America because like, he literally dogs, Antifa and every leftists that he knows like to and send those information to literally, like terror, like fascist group there, so they can
He
go
gives
and
people's names and
harm.
addresses to people who would show up to them.
Exactly, and
And
he's gay.
mhm,
Andy Ngo is gay.
he's technically gay and he's technically Vietnamese, but he's still an
Yeah.
agent of fascism. And one of the most disrupting things is that not all of the agents of imperialism, capitalism, so forth, even are aware that they're doing it, but are instead acting simply under how they understand what is the best method of going about this, which is a recuperated method. Many people who I genuinely believe are good people who still believe in reformism or believe in social democracy or believe in acceptance politics, who are harming themselves and the queer community around them by not building up queer power to defend ourselves from the frankly genocidal campaign in the United States and soon to be equivalent ones across Western Europe.
So it is a really true thing that capitalists hasn't like the rich, the imperial core, they're using
Mhm,
our community. They're using us to fight against us, to sow division between
mhm,
us. And the point that I'm trying so hard, to trying to educate people on that kind of issue because like like I am a member of LGBT plus in Vietnam and we are fighting so hard in our home front,
mhm.
fighting against Neo-confucianism, Christianity belief, and also, the capitalist hegemony. And also I have to fight against those misunderstandings about us coming from the West. Like usually like one of the biggest threats we're receiving right now in Vietnam is from the West, and then
Mm,
it's tiring and it's helpless sometimes because
mhm.
it's really hard. Like literally, we're fighting on both domestically and then in the overseas too. All the threats coming from that at the same time. The capitalists has somebody they are using ourselves to fight against us, just like they're doing the exact same thing in the West, like with like Pete Buttigieg, with Annie Ngo, and also Kamala Harris, and also all kinds of stuff like that. And then,
You know, it is problematic because the capitalist powers are actively weaponizing divisions and causing sectarian infighting amongst kinds of people in order to divide people and to make the situation more rife for disruption and so forth. When all of our enemies are exactly the same, one to one, whether it's the Vietnamese communist or if it's the queer activists in the United States and so forth, all these different kinds of people, all at the end of the day have the same enemy: the capitalist, the liberal, and the fascist. But of course, I repeat myself.
yeah.
uh, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the greatest threat to any movement and to the well-being and welfare of any kind of person is imperialist hegemony, and it's the thing that people should be fighting against. And we people in the first world have a duty not just to our comrades in the second and third world, but to ourselves and our own welfare to destroy hegemony first. Because those are who are oppressing us right now.
Yeah.
Is the capitalist state in Europe and in America, who are the major threats to queer people. And our political paradigm should not be trying to get acceptance by these capitalist states, by these imperialist states. We should not be trying to integrate ourselves into them. We should not be trying to align ourselves with them. We should not be throwing ourselves before its feet and begging for the crumbs of rights. We should be going out and building our own power and building a proletarian movement to liberate ourselves and to have a true, free, and fair democracy for people.
Exactly, and Vietnamese, LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam right now, including me, we trying so hard. We are fighting. Literally, we are fighting every day in the society in Vietnam, both, to educate our society, and also at the same time we have to fight against all the bad influence coming from the West. Also fighting against the misunderstanding of us coming from the West. It's the kind of thing that we have to fight from all fronts. I'm laughing I'm crying inside.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awful situation where you have to fight against the conservative elements of your society while also making sure that you're doing it in a way that isn't destroying the democracy that you have.
Yeah.
Because if that happens, then you won't have the ability to affect society for the better. And I can directly parallel that again to say the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
We had problems. We had a lot of problems. We even had, problems with the queer rights and so forth, especially in places like Poland or the USSR proper. And people there struggled against that and tried to fight for a better world. And the first thing that really unmistakably disheveled that and completely thrown out any progress that had been made and could have been made was the collapse of the communist order in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
People's rights and welfare had immediately disappeared and actively regressed further and further into degradation when the Soviet Union collapsed. Russia now is more queerphobic than the Soviet Union ever thought of being. Poland now is more queerphobic than the People's Republic ever thought of being, so on and so forth. They had unmistakably been made the worst, less democratic, and less well for people, and less capable of being changed by the people for its betterment. Which is why I find all of the calls of people, to interfere in any country, whether it's second world or third world, whether it's socialist or not, by Western people, to be so offensive, because America's not going to let them get better.
Yeah, they will not. They just literally bombed us back to the Stone Age 50 years ago. And we still call ourselves a Marxist-Leninist country right now. So
if we look at the children of the Soviet Union, Ukraine is a Nazi state, and Russia is a despotic imperialist oligarchy, right?
Yeah.
And we look at Poland. There are swaths of Poland that have declared themselves LGBTQ free zones. And the president threatens, I believe it was the previous president, had threatened to hang judges for being too pro-gay.
Yeah, exactly.
I
mean, yeah, it is. It's worse and worse and worse. And Brunei is a small kingdom in the Southeast Asia, and the king, I think that last year, I think that's something that last 2 years something, he gave an order of if they found any LGBTQ plus member in their country, they could be stoned to death, even though his own son is a gay, in the member of LGBT plus. So it is like this, like the again, you don't blame communism on queerphobia, please.
Mhm.
Because it is literally the thing that has nothing to do with communism. We literally communists were trying
Communist
so
countries
hard.
were the first ones to deal with
Yeah.
queerphobia. Cuba
Yeah.
had decriminalized being gay well before most Western European countries did. The GDR, the German Democratic Republic, had decriminalized being gay long before the U.S. and West Germany, and so forth, and had done great strides in stepping out of queerphobia.
Yeah.
And then they got integrated into West Germany during the collapse period of the Soviet Union, and women's welfare and well-being dramatically took a dip. Queer people, in many cases, were forced back into the closet, and a lot of the progress that had been made had been undone in a night in East Germany. People's life expectancy went
Yeah.
dramatically down. I keep coming back to this, but
Yeah.
like sexual violence against people had risen dramatically just over fucking night. It was a nightmare for people. It both, like, famously we talk about how it like fucked over people's like the abstracted proletarian. They were
Yeah.
resubjugated to capitalism. They had lost their labor rights. They had work hour increases, pay decrease, so on and so forth, health care decrease, so on and so forth. But even on identity issues, it had dramatically devaluated. Women struggled more when the GDR fell. Queer people struggled
Yeah.
more when the GDR fell.
Yeah.
Non-white Germans struggled more when the GDR fell. And same is true for every Soviet country that had
True.
fallen during the collapse period.
Yeah.
And again, there is nothing good in first world people arguing to intervene in
Yeah.
any imperialized nation. The imperialized people can do it themselves, and they had already been doing it. We saw it in GDR. We see it right now in Cuba. We see it right now in Vietnam. We see places like China. The LGBT movement, as I understand from my Chinese comrades, gets stronger there every day. We see it in like all these socialist nations. They are dealing with it themselves, and they need first world help to deal with internal problems. If you want to help the LGBTQ plus populations or the ethnic minorities or so on and so forth, any kind of person in these imperialized nations, you do not want to agitate against these their states. You want to be agitating against yours, because not only is yours harming them, it's also harming you.
True.
The greatest threat to you every day you wake up, if you're a first world person, the greatest threat to you is your state, is your capitalist state, is your capitalist fake democracy. That's the greatest threat to you. It is the thing that is decreasing your life, its value and well-being. And thank you for the very fine comment.
Yeah, I wish that everybody can just be like Comrade Clevername, our life would be so much easier. Our fight would be a little bit
it takes
less.
A lot of, go, sorry.
Yeah, just want to say our fight would be a little bit less hard.
It takes a lot of shutting up and listening, which is a very offensive thing. It is trained to be an offensive thing to Western people. And it's a process, but people definitely need to learn how to listen, I think. And it's sort of a project of the psychological revolution, which is my personal pet project, but I'll talk about that some other day, maybe. But if you are a first world person and you want to help the LGBT movement in second and third world countries, the way you do that is by fighting against your imperialist states. You do that by fighting against the European Union. You do that by fighting against the United States. You do that by fighting against America, or by fighting against Canada. so on and so forth, all these different countries, because these are the countries that are trying to make it worse and harder for people to become more free in those states. And those are the same people who are oppressing you right now, either via the open means of the state or via not prosecuting the self-deputized fascists who seek to oppress LGBTQ people, oppress non-white people in first world countries.
Yeah, Maximilian just said that leave us alone. You want to help? Fight against your state. We can handle things down here. This is also the exact same message that I want to send, to, comrades LGBTQ plus in the West, because like we are the people, we are totally capable of fighting this, fighting our own fight, and literally like
we've just seen it right
state.
Cuba.
Yeah, in Cuba, literally, Cuba is the best example that just happened last week. And we're totally capable of doing this. And don't forget that if it is in Vietnam, we are the same exact people who successfully overthrow colonialism and overthrow imperialism. So we're totally capable of saving ourselves. And also at the same time, please acknowledge that your state, the imperial core right now, is very real, living, and dangerous threat into our own existence. And the thing that you can do if you really want to help is to stop your own state. You do not call for more interference from your state, because that is the last thing on us that we want. We don't want any more threats. We don't want any interference. We are capable of doing it ourselves. And you also, at the same time, it's even way worse for you over there living in Imperial Core, facing all the hate crimes you face every single day. So it is more important for you to focus on your fight, on your front, to fight against your own genocidal state. That is very important to acknowledge.
Many Western people don't realize that these second and third world countries have their own LGBTQ movements.
Exactly, and we have our own voice.
The only times that they ever get informed of that is when they hear about some liberal org that's 20 people strong with freer the markets, the gayer the people is their slogan, right?
Yeah. We do have ending goals like Vietnam. Then they usually just very confident for them to just listen to people like animals. And yeah, just like non-compete said, like Westerners just want to play white savior. Yeah, white savior complex. We always, like global South, we do not know better. We cannot help ourselves. We're so helpless and hopeless, and we need to be saved.
No. People are struggling for themselves everywhere, and first world people do not need to agitate for what they think would be best for these governments to take, because the people in those governments are already doing that. The people of Vietnam know how best to agitate for Vietnamese queer liberation. Any other third and second world country, the people there, they know how best to advocate for their own liberation. We needn't not try to impose our idea of how it should be down upon them, and should be especially suspicious of anyone who's supposedly from those countries asking for American help, because they don't need that. No one needs that. No one wants that. Do you know
the last thing ourselves? The last time we did it, they bombed us back to Stone Age. So no thanks.
Vietnam asked for America's help during the war against the French liberation, and you know what America did? They said, "No, fuck off. We're not helping you." And then, of course, the war actually began, and America decided to come in to help the French. That's who America always helps. America helps the colonialist. America helps the authoritarian. America helps the fascist and the demagogue.
Yeah. Dorian said sapient. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Don't make oppressed people in oppressed nations fight against both their domestic and international oppressors at the same time.
Advocating for Western intervention in imperialized countries is harming them, is harming those people, and is harming their struggles, because now they have to deal with the eye of the eye of Sauron looking upon them. Yeah, they have to deal with the international community, quotation marks, scrutinizing everything that they're doing and trying to find ways of creeping in and helping and so forth.
Yeah.
Which is
Here's the Vietnamese Conrad in the chat to say, no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks. So it is a thing, like, I think that, I think that the thing, why, white savior complex, it happens because, the chauvinism and the racism still ingrained inside. I'm sorry, it is a fact, but I have to say it. But in the racism and chauvinism ingrained inside even the LGBTQ plus community in the West. But even though, they also oppressed. Yes, I'm sorry, like, you're also oppressed by your state over there. But because your whole life you live in that society, you got fed your whole life with chauvinism and with racism. And then you believe that we, as I said, we do not know better. We are incapable of helping ourselves. Therefore, we need your help. And then, like, by that, you mean like calling for your government's help. I mean,
there's not that much of a controversial statement in the first world, honestly. Many people have talked about how racist mainstream queer community is in, say, America, with some genuinely horrible examples of how very racist. Tailton Rabbit definitely can go into some stories, I believe, on that subject. But hello, Tail. How are you this evening?
yeah.
But there is lingo inside of the gay male community inside of the United States to express no interest in particularly Mexican and African people that have been developed. And I cannot repeat, I don't want to repeat that language because it is racist in and of itself, but is an outright expression of, like, no, I do not want to get into and it's somewhat normalized and had been normalized all last decade and all prior decades to that in like the gay romantic scene, some men will just explain, like, I have no interest in dating non-white people. I just simply do not have interest in this. And that was fine and normal to be that racist.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, it's kind of accepted in that society, your society in the imperial court kind of encourage that behavior, right? I mean, JS has a very good question for you, Comrade Clevername. Yeah, this is a question. How do you feel about criticizing other cultures for not being LGBTQ plus inclusive while still trying to respect other cultures' differences and being aware of our Western bias? Very big question.
It's certainly a complicated one, and it requires, I think, a lot of context of where you are speaking. Certainly, we are permitted our right to critique cultures, even non-Western ones, because we can observe that many cultures have reactionary traditions, even to now. But we need to understand where those reactionary traditions come from, why they still exist, and so forth. Trying to understand, because many of these reactionary traditions were either instituted by colonial periods or exacerbated and heightened during the colonial periods. And even if not, even if it was an untouched upon thing that this imperialized country still does, we are permitted our right to critique it. But I do not believe we have the right to propagandize about it, to critique it in public, and to make it a public platform. To, like, not talking about it on Twitter, not talking about it on YouTube, not talking about it on stuff like this, is something to talk about amongst comrades in private, and especially amongst comrades in those nations who are struggling against them right now. Because again, the people there are aware of the fact that they have reactionary traditions, and they are dealing with them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we can these countries have reactionary traditions, and we can detest those people who come to us to suggest that they are permitted these reactionary traditions, but we cannot as Westerners ourselves agitate to abolish these reactionary traditions because we're not there. We're not those people, and we are not living their struggle. Instead, we allow those people to do it themselves because they are the ones fit for that job. So yes, we can critique things, but we cannot propagandize about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that there are two big things that we comrades from Global South LGBTQ plus community we want to see Westerners do is this. First, it should be a constructive criticism, not just to punch down, because we don't need any more of your bullshit. Okay. And so, constructive criticism, and we would love very much. And we are aware that we are not utopia. We not perfect. We have so many problems, and we are working on it. And constructive criticism is good, and we want to listen. We want to hear that. And then there's the second thing is that do not call for interference from the imperial core. You don't, because all they will bring is destruction and death to our community, and you don't do that. Yeah, just remember the two basic things, and I think that's really safe for you. Yeah, as you said, like, do not propagandize that.
To give an example, I am thinking of the tradition of Chinese foot binding, which I don't believe the British or the Germans ever really put a stop to, nor tried to exacerbate. They didn't really seem to care all that much. And certainly we can look at the process of foot binding and say it's abominable, right? Breaking young girls' feet to form them in ways that it's not good. And
Yes.
Chinese people knew that, and as such,
They did that for hundreds of thousands of years. Well, 1,000 of years.
And when the People's Republic was installed, one of the first things that the Cultural Revolution did was try to undo foot binding and to end that practice. Chinese people were aware of that fact. Now imagine if if this process was happening today, and imagine the howling jackals of the internet, talking about
and they did it themselves. Exactly, they were turned down against communism so badly. Evil authoritarian regime, something like that.
Like, imagine what it would be like if Western leftists or Western society just all got about to say, foot binding is bad. What is that doing for people in China, aside from agitating more and more for the idea of intervention in China, which, as we know at the time, was just to produce more opium? That's the interest that the British and the Germans had in that, and to plunder the countryside. It would not have helped the Chinese people. It would not have done anything for Chinese women. It would not have done anything for anyone, but made the already rich much richer. And as such, it was a situation for Chinese people to handle, and they did because they could, because they don't need your help to learn what's bad. As a matter of fact, the second and third world are filled with people just as smart, maybe even smarter than you.
At least we had that revolution. You forgot about that? We did our revolution. Why?
They can be trusted. People can be trusted. Most people know what's best for them and will agitate for that what's best for them.
Yeah. It's so funny, what, Comrade Clevername, like, we the people, like Vietnam situation, we defeated colonialism and then imperialism, like literally like the most powerful empire on earth in just like a matter of like 30 years, but somehow we are still weak people that need to be saved. Like, it's like the weak, strong kind of enemy mindset of the fascists. Like
It's
we're
again
strong and we're weak at the same time.
is again just a complete ignorance of the idea, just
Yeah.
unaware that people are doing things there, that there are people who are recognizing that there are problems in their society and are trying to solve it themselves. And they have a much better chance of solving it than we do, quite frankly, because they live in an actual democracy. In the case of second world people, we don't. We don't live in a democracy. We either live in an autocracy or an oligarchy. And we
Or we
must.
call it the bourgeois democracy, which
Mhm,
means the democracy only for the bourgeoisie.
mhm. We call that oligarchy.
Mm.
And that's what we live in. The United States is an oligarchy, and many of its client states are either oligarchies themselves or autocracies, full-on dictatorships, or in some liminal space between the two, like say Italy is now. And we must be attempting to democratize our society so that we can build up our own queer power. To help our to help ourselves, who are the main concern that we live in that is in our lives right now, because we are in a horribly precarious situation, which is very dreadful, especially for American people who are very beguiled and hoodwinked by the capitalist state, who do not realize that they are living in such an abominable condition, filled with such alien and barbarous orders, right? It is an abominable situation. America, you can turn on any story talking about the United States and just hear how awful it is. I just off the top of my head, I am reminded of the story in a women's prison where a C-section had to be done without anesthesia or painkillers, and the only thing that they had for disinfectant was sugar.
Mm.
Because the warden who was overseeing the procedure believed that sugar was a disinfectant. Shockingly, the woman who had that didn't die.
She was lucky.
Some people God chooses not to die. I can only say that. I do not know how that woman survived.
Ay, so see, like we all have our own battle, to fight, and I hope that we can just, all like focus on the thing that we can affect ourselves. Means that like you're from the imperial core, you fight in the imperial core because you literally there and you can affect the society. Meanwhile, we are fighting in here, and what I want, for us to do is like to, of course, we care for each other and we try to listen to each other, of course. And but at the same time, we have to trust. Like I trust you, so that you can fight your own fight, and you trust me that we can fight our own fight, and so show solidarity and maybe help and listening to each other. And that is it, because this is like the world right now is I mean, the economy and everything, the society is getting more dangerous for us, and the best thing that we should do right now is to focus on our own fight.
Yes, no. That's really the only thing we can focus on, because we must secure stability for ourselves before we even can consider helping anyone else in a more material way. We must trust our comrades that they have their best interests at heart, and that they will achieve their own struggles in time. And we must do that for ourselves, because we are in no position to help anyone, aside from, of course, the help of destroying the imperialist powers that we are living under, because that will help people immensely. But in any other regard, what exactly do you intend to help them with? How do you
Yeah, what exactly what you about to do?
in mind exactly? Right? Which is the thing that I don't think many people think about. I don't think many people have the answer of what that supposed help even is, aside from this vague intuition that they should help help in quotation marks these second and third world countries in some way.
Yeah, you can't even have yourself in there. You
Mm.
know, you're literally like
we need to help
dying
ourselves
over there.
first. We need to help
Yeah.
ourselves first. We're in an abominable state. We are in crisis. We're in a great culmination of the historical process. The American hegemony is borderline collapsed unto itself, even in its own borders.
Yeah.
We see fascist militants march down the streets. We have mass political action done by the right. The constant signs of imminent collapse are about us, and
Yeah.
we don't have anything to protect our own people, protect ourselves. Each individual one of ourselves is unprotected, whether we are queer, like myself, who is in a very vulnerable position because I am, from an immigrant family. I am Jewish and I am trans and so forth, and I'm physically disabled. Right? Like,
we just got raided by famous horse. Hi, Conrad. Famous horse, which is seen on Netflix. Congratulations on your appearance on Netflix.
Congratulations on being on Netflix. Truly a famous horse.
You're literally the famous horse.
Quite factually.
You're right. I mean, what do we talk about here? Do you want to talk a little bit about the rainbow capitalism?
Yes.
For the last about 30 minutes we have?
Because I touched on it a little bit earlier before with the idea that certain liberals are moderately okay with trans people as long as they maintain and reintegrate themselves in capitalist hegemony and capitalist gender in some way.
Maintain the status quo.
And give people a completely fictitious method, a fully fictional idea that there is a linear progress in history and that capitalist states are getting better at queer issues, when all signs around us are showing that they're getting worse.
Yeah, exactly. I
but
mean, the lots of corporation just keep like take our aesthetics and take our slogan and flag and into painting them and then just like to advertise them to us like yes.
Corporations bedeck themselves with rainbows once a month every year and immediately throw them all out and continue to expunge queer people from engaging in that on the spot. And the worst part is this propaganda campaign is moderately effective because there are so many vestiges throughout all of society that are acting as if though queer rights are enshrined in some sanctified way, when that should be, especially now, so self-evidently absurd, when things that were considered off the table, like the right for abortion, had just been rescinded not only a couple months ago. The true precarity of the situation must be, I think, made aware for many first world people.
I'm very angry. I'm very angry at the abortion rights over there in the US.
Yes.
I'm mad whenever I think about it.
And like the process of rainbow washing is effective only in so that there are all voices speaking in chorus say that it is fine and working. That Western society is freer and more accepting for queer people, and it's basically over. It's the end of history, everyone. We did it. Sorry, we were wrong about that when we said it was 1991. Now it's the end of history because we fully got gay right. Like every week, it's the end of history whenever a concession is given. Right, gay marriage was the end of history.
My gosh,
Black Lives Matter protests back in 2020 was the actual end of history, because now we actually got police reforms TM, right? Like, and it's abominable because these struggles are still going on to this day. Black people are still advocating for their lives to this day as the police still continue to murder them. Women still must must still advocate for their rights and welfare to this day. As
With their right to abortion, like I think they can't even decide what they do with their own bodies.
Yeah, and now we queer people still also have to fight for our right to exist, as to our right to pair with each other, our right to love people, and our right to be ourselves, as we have with the laws, or not laws, but guidelines and sometimes laws being enforced across the United States, saying that trans people cannot transition and cannot go into spaces that are aligned with their gender, and cannot do this and cannot do that, and are being taken and disappeared by the state. Hello, the Freaks Museum. I believe I saw one of your messages shoot by on the. Also, when a place like Cuba passes the most progressive human rights bill in history, the West acts like Cuba is still tailing the states because they legalized gay marriage a few years earlier. America is going to recriminalize gay marriage soon. It's like, oh wow, they can be paid for doing family labor. How I hope they get up to our level one day. Our level of
homophobic and homophobia and queerphobia, and the amount of racism.
We don't even enforce the right to gay marriage, right? I remember I can't even remember her bloody name anymore, but that woman who decided not to sign marriage papers for gay people, and that was a thing for months, and it was eventually decided she didn't have to. I mean, we don't even enforce it. We don't even enforce it, but sure do hope
you're going backward. You're a backward country. Like talking about the USA, you're living in a backward country. That literally things just get worse. Like literally, the abortion right was revoked. Like on the voice of being completely revoked was like, what the heck?
I tell my community to popularize the idea of first world shithole, because that's what it is.
Exactly.
Infrastructure is miserable. Wages are miserable. Jobs are miserable. There are awful conditions across every single vector. Rights are non-existent, so on and so forth. And we have the audacity to say that the third world has it worse.
Yeah, right. You have the nerve to say that. Again, as I said, that is why I mean. Yeah,
many people here have the absolute audacity to say that we need to help people anywhere else. Have you looked in the mirror?
At least in Vietnam, we we had the abortion right in the 1989, and that's it. Nobody even talk about it anymore because that's obvious. That's like people who get pregnant, they can decide for themselves that they want to have kids or not to keep the kids, and that's fine. It's not even a controversial topic here at all. It's obvious.
The narrative control is so incredible. You'd think Cuba was the source of all homophobia in the world if you listened to Worms. Absolutely. Absolutely. The U.S. only seems nice if you stick to the nicest place. These days, even those are getting rough. It's like the I know that there are I know things like I lived in Florida a couple years. Your condolences are well welcomed, Chad. But I lived in Florida for a couple of years, and
Florida, the worst.
It's dreadful. I have many stories about Florida.
Yeah, I mean Florida and Texas, which is the worst.
The one time I had gone into a McDonald's and saw a fellow absolutely bedecked in SS tattoos.
Oh gosh.
Just living in North Florida. America is the Florida of the world. That is very much true, friend. But I am recalled of stories of like, oh no, you don't want to go to Cuba. If you go to Cuba, they're just going to take you to these paper
Yeah,
paper
yeah, sure, yeah.
I gotta give props to America's the Florida of the world.
You're the Florida of the world.
It's like that stings, but it's true.
It's very true. It's very true. But I was born here and I still live here 22 years of Florida. God help me. I'm very sorry for your loss, Blue. I'm very sorry for your loss.
Yeah, only God can help you. I'm so sorry.
North Florida is South Florida.
Lady Luna, yeah, you just sent a super chat question. I will answer it later because it's not really fit the thing today, but I will answer that question before, at the end of the stream. Yeah, I will answer that, address that. Yeah. I mean, Miami.
Oh, Miami is dreadful. Every time I had gone to Miami, it was one of the worst experiences I had. Miserable city.
Literally.
Orlando is also probably about as bad. Orlando, which I always tell people about this because they don't know about this, how Disney has its own secret police in Orlando.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wait a minute, you do?
Yes, Disney has its own police force that is recognized within the law of Orlando.
Is that the dream of ANCAP?
Yes. Disney has its own laws and police force, and the Disney security services work in tandem with traditional state police force inside of Orlando to pursue crimes and laws. It is a corporatocracy. It is wild. It's really bad that Ron DeSantis was the only guy who questioned about Disney's station inside of Florida as its own micronation. And that's mainly because he didn't like how,
question.
And that's mainly because he didn't like how they pretend to be gay. It's awful.
Oh my gosh. Oh. You know what? The
Disney
worst
World
place...
is technically its own city, yes.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, you feel like you have a little bit of different kind of opinion about which is the worst place in America, according to Vietnamese people. Generally speaking, according to Vietnamese people, the worst place in America is Orange County, California.
That's pretty bad. But
there's so many anti-communist Vietnamese living there. So we were like, just Orange County, California, huh?
But Disney can arrest people legally. That is correct. Yes, you can be arrested by Disney. Disney also, of course, has its own secret intelligence service. But that's a whole other story. It is shocking. Oh, and they have their own company town, Eagles Freedom or some dumb shit like that. I can't remember. I've been there once.
Oh gosh.
It is a nightmare, but
I wish that I didn't know about this before.
It is a thing. It is a whole thing. But to get slightly back on topic, I have you don't want to go to Cuba because it's a show. They'll only take you to like the nice parts of the city, Havana, and they won't show you real Cuba. Right. That's how it is in America.
Mm-hmm.
There are paper towns in America where we have pretend infrastructure and welfare and so forth, like say Orlando, that is built upon the misery and suffering of people there. I've lived in cities the past couple of places I've lived in, and the conditions there are abysmal. There are massive homeless populations. There are housing crises. There are a myriad of problems and tribulations of people all across them. And these are places that are ostensibly meant for people outside of the country to come to anyway. Like the nice places of America are getting bad too.
And here's the thing too. Do you know the argument you just said about why do Cubans just like like flee to the USA. Why not the other way around? You know, like a very ding dong argument coming from right wingers that we debunked so many times. Like at this point, just laughable. But literally, like, you know, like lots of Vietnamese, you know, also anti-communist, not all, but like lots of them are anti-communist fascist sympathizers. It is so bad that we literally consider, we Vietnamese communists consider America, the USA, to be our trash can. That we literally, like, the worst of us will flee to the USA, and that's it. Like, we're like, bye! Never see you again. Bye. We're like very happy. Like, I'm not saying all the people who like leave Vietnam to live in the imperial constitution are all bad. I'm just saying like the big part of it are like very much like fascist sympathizers, right wingers, like Andy Ngo. The Andy Ngo is like the descendants of those people, so you know what I'm talking about here. And yeah, I'm sorry, but like we consider you like kind of meme, like the USA is our trash can, the trash can of the world.
You know, I can definitely say like some people who fled from the Soviet times were awful, awful people. Like
Yeah.
in Canada in particular, there are a lot of SS Foreign Legion men who fled there. And they have like a whole shrine dedicated to the I can't remember which SS division, but the one from Ukraine. They have a proper shrine dedicated to the Ukrainian SS division.
Yeah. You know, the Operation Paperclip, you literally like bring the fascist officers into your society and put them into the government. Yay.
Yes, we brought all of the wonderfully intelligent Nazi scientists who couldn't figure out how to do a rocket when they had German super prophets.
Okay, we have about 5 or 10 minutes left in the stream, Comrade Clevername, and I want to address this question from Lennon Luna. This is a question coming from with a super chat. Thank you so much for super chat. And here's the question: thoughts on Iran's currently feminist revolt and saw footage of LGBTQ plus flags being waved there, a country that execute the LGBTQ plus. You can answer if you want, but this is my answer. Like, I am still looking very closely in this situation, and I don't know much about it yet. I mean, like, it's extremely complicated, and we need to look at from many angles as possible. So I could not answer you. Yeah, hopefully in the near future I can, but for now, I'm still learning about the situation. So sadly, I can't. Yeah. What do you say, correct, Clevername?
Could I get a transcript of the question?
Yeah. Thoughts on Iran's currently feminist revolt and saw footage of LGBTQ plus flags being waved over there. Iran is really the country that executed the LGBTQ plus before. Yeah, that's the question.
I have heard many things about the current Iranian protests. I have heard many people who are generally wrong about events in the third world talking about how this is a great moment, and I have heard some people saying that it's complicated, and I've heard some people saying it's bad, and I usually err on the side of it's complicated. Definitely say that Iran is a bit more complex than they execute LGBTQ plus people. Iran, generally speaking, it's not good. I don't mean to say it's good, but is not a simple black and white situation like that. I believe a lot of their solutions are I think they still engage in forced conversion for gay men to forcibly convert them into women. I believe is generally the response for Iran. I do believe they have executed gay people there before, but it is. I believe that the situation is very complicated, and I would again reiterate the situation of America executes gay people too. We do not give people the option of existing as a woman it is just pure torture and murder and oppression. Because I want to remind people, especially for my first world listeners at this moment, that the United States to this day still continues conversion therapy. That is still lawful in many states, and that is, again, to be absolutely clear, torturing people until they are no longer functional. Under the guise that it's somehow turning them straight or turning them cis. It does not. And many of them know that it does not, and is more often than not an attempt to get queer people to terminate rather than
Exactly.
to cure them, quotation marks. It is a torturous process that is still carried out in many US states to this day. I think Canada only recently banned conversion therapy. I have not heard of it. If they did, I would not be surprised if they have not.
Yeah.
But
As I said, like this again, like the government of Vietnam,
it is
they
not just my
literally try
electroshock,
to
Nemo. It
ban.
is not conversion therapy.
Yeah.
Is not just electroshock.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of it's a whole procedure of disgusting methods and methods they're gonna use on you. And yeah, we're trying to ban conversion therapy in Vietnam and try to educate people right here, like like it is not a disease, therefore it cannot be cured. End of story. Okay, that's just it. Okay. Okay. We are technically out of time. And do you have any final message you want to
One real
send
quick
to the chat
statement
today?
of many chatters are saying that yes, Canada has banned conversion therapy, and I'm glad for them. I hope they can. I hope they catch up in the footsteps of Cuba eventually. But it's a good first step for them. I hope they one day step out of their backwardsness.
Whatever step you take, I'm happy for you. And we're trying so hard too. Yeah.
Again,
Conversion therapy is a combination of isolation, gaslighting, and physical aversion. It's total package. Yeah.
I know of a couple of horror stories of the kinds of things that happen to people in conversion camps, and it's not good. It's very abominable, and I am glad truly that Canada has banned it. But again, it is only recently that the supposed progressive first world country has banned it.
Yeah, right. It's supposed to be a long time ago, right? True.
And still only 25 states in the US has banned it. There are many more than 25 where it is not banned.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Only 25 banned conversion therapy in the United States. And only recently.
And yet you act like the USA is so progressive, so good.
Again, it is abominable. And for my final statement, we people in the first world need to deal with the first world first and foremost, because it is where we live and it is our home. This is where we are, and this is where we are struggling, and we are struggling. We are in a life and death fight against the great dragon capital. We must survive. We must survive its throes and its blows and its final moments of life, and we must make sure that the next historical epoch is one of freedom, liberty, and democracy, one of true people's power for all kinds of proletarian. Rather than a fascist dictatorship that will speed us into oblivion, which is what it seems to be going in if we do not do anything right now. We need to get out there and organize for our own community and for our own people, and trust and know that everyone else is doing the same. We need to stand up straight and fight for ourselves. And that's the main thing. We need to be collectivist, and we need to organize in communities and build up our power so that we can have a tomorrow at all, let alone a bright one. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. It's a really, great conversation with you. And yeah, what I want to say right now is that like we, the LGBTQ plus people in Vietnam, we also fighting really hard in our own country to try to educate people and ask for like for the government to officially recognize us and give us like official health care and something like that, and also our rights to same-sex marriage. And we really want that. Just please do that, Vietnamese government. Like please just do what Cuba just did, please. And at the same time, like yeah, we trust in you that comrades over there on the outside of the earth can fight your own fight. And we also ask the same thing, that please trust us and give us some time, you know, so we can like together build a fight for a better world. And yeah, give each other solidarity, listen to each other, try to uplift each other. Yeah, and that's
Mhm.
it. And that's long fight in the future, but we're doing everything that we can, right?
Mhm.
Thank you so much for taking your time and being here. This stream is a really great conversation with you and everybody in the chat. If you haven't followed Clevername yet, what are you doing? Follow her. She's awesome, man. And she's on Twitch a lot of time. And please go check her out. And thank you so much, everybody,
My
being
social
here today.
medias are twitch.tv/Comrade Clevername, and my Twitter account is at @CClevername, all one
Mm,
word. So it's
yeah,
Clevername because they wouldn't allow me to fit in.
Clevername.
They wouldn't allow me to fit the full word comrade on the Twitch so I had to shorten it down to Clevername.
Oh my gosh. Um,
If
that
it's
is
like
the reason why, yeah, I'm
I
still not affiliated on Twitch.
oh wow, you aren't.
Yeah,
Somehow I got affiliated on Twitch. I don't know. I am a weird person in a nut who talks about very complex political topics over very silly games. So I don't. They allowed me to do it, and I am ruining their emote selection every day.
yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
you just got a heart from a Vietnamese comrade in the chat.
Dankeschön.
I don't want to interrupt, but I think that it got switched around. Twitter.com/cclevername, if I'm not mistaken, and in case
Yeah,
people are listening and want to.
Yeah, right?
It's Twitter is Clevername and Twitch is the full Comrade Clevername.
yes,
I think.
that is correct. Did I fuck it up?
That
I
is
probably
correct.
fucked it up.
Thanks so much, EJ. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And I hope that I can bring you back in near future.
I
And
hope so.
okay. Bye, everybody.